You're running a risk in retirement and you're probably not even aware of it. So, what is it? It's running the risk of having regrets at the end of retirement. So, today we're going to go over 5 common regrets that people typically have at the end of retirement, and then I'll share some helpful tips and insights and how to avoid those. Hello, my name is Jason Byance. I'm a former analyst and certified financial planner, and my goal is to help share some information that can make this complex world of retirement planning a little more simple and sensical. So let's jump right in. The first regret that we most often hear is, I wish I would have retired earlier. Somebody close to me comes to mind whenever I think about retiring earlier. Her name was Margaret. And Margaret was a widow, and after her husband had died, she really poured herself into 2 things. One was the children at school. She was a school teacher. She really poured herself into her kids. And then also, she poured herself into everyone around her friends, her family, her coworkers, the people at church, her neighbors. And unfortunately, it was kind of at the detriment to her own. She didn't really focus on herself too much. She kept saying to me, Jason, I need to retire. I need to come in there and see you. I need to retire. And then one day, she finally did. It was sometime after January. She came in, and as we sat down and started talking about retirement and trying to figure out what her goals and her desires were, she shared with us a very simple but beautiful vision. She wanted to get one of those teardrop motorhomes and pull it behind her SUV, take her little dog, and go from state park and national park one right after another just to see this beautiful country of ours. Well, unfortunately, a couple months later in August, she tragically died. She never really got to experience retirement. She never got to experience retirement at all. And so that just reminds me of a lot of people say, I wish I would have retired earlier. I wish I would have had that time to enjoy. And we hear that old adage of you never hear someone on their deathbed say, I wish I would have spent more time at the office. I don't know if I've ever heard somebody say those exact words, but I have heard them say, I wish I would have retired earlier. And I never really hear them say, I'm glad I worked that extra year or I worked that extra couple of years, because many times it just doesn't have the effect that we think it does. So that's one of the things that you can try to avoid is getting a plan in place so that you can have the confidence to retire a little bit earlier and take advantage of the greatest asset we have, which is our time. So, whenever we're talking about retirement planning and being able to retire earlier, it's all about having confidence in your plan. So, I want to invite you to click the link below, and we would love to send you a free copy of my brother Justin's book, Designed to Last. This is a short read, only about 100 pages. And in the back of that book, it's got a list of questions. And these questions are the most important ones that you and your family want to be asking so that you can put a plan in place that you can retire earlier, hopefully, and really have confidence. So click the link below, and we'd love to send you that book. So now let's go over the regret that we hear most often. And number 2 is, I wish I would have spent more. And you may say to yourself, really, Jason, do you hear that? And the answer is yes. We often hear people say at the end of their retirement, I wish I would have spent more. And actually, there's a lot of surveys out there that show this as well. And we oftentimes say, whenever one of our advisors is sitting down with a client, we want to help you be more generous with yourself. We want to help you have freedom to enjoy that money that you spent a lifetime of accumulating. And spending more can have a whole host of things. It can be traveling. These are called earlier in retirement the go go years. It's when you have your health, it's when you have your mobility, when you have your cognitive abilities. And that's the time that you want to travel, take that trip to Europe, whatever it may be. The other times that we often hear people say, I wish I would have spent more, is in the context of their family and loved ones. A lot of people have the great desire of leaving a legacy, leaving financial gifts to their children, grandchildren, whoever their heirs may be. But we often hear people regret and say, I wish I would have spent more with them. Instead of leaving them this pot of money that I've saved up, I wish I would have spent it with my spouse, with my siblings, with my children, with my grandchildren, with my loved ones. I wish I would have spent more. And it all goes back to having a plan in place so that you can have the confidence to do so. The third regret that we often hear a lot of people saying is, I wish I would have learned how to transition into retirement. So what do I mean when I say people wish they would have learned how to transition and or they wish they would have transitioned into retirement? Well, have you ever had a manual car and you go through the gears and you get up to fifth gear, I'm sorry. Have you ever dropped it into a lower gear? You could end up ruining your whole transmission because you went from fifth gear to first gear, all right? And that happens a lot of times with people where it's go, go, go during their working years and then they just stop. They didn't transition into retirement. So, what do I mean by that? Well, it's really about focusing on purpose, on identity. Transitioning into retirement can be focusing on your hobbies. Many people, when they're working, they kind of forget about their hobbies. So, as you're preparing for retirement, I hear a lot of people say, I wish I would have kind of thought back to when I was younger. What were those things that made me feel alive? Was it painting? Was it volunteering? Was it photography or woodworking? All kinds of different things, sailing, fishing, golfing. You don't have that time during your working years, and then you just go ahead and stop. The other part of transitioning into retirement is when you're working, you have a set schedule. And you need to kind of have a set schedule in retirement too. It's actually good for us. They call it the circadian rhythm of days and nights and how that's good for the body. Well, it's also good to have that in your week. Mondays I do this, Tuesdays I do that. It really keeps both our physical health and our mental health in a good place. So, people often regret, I wish I would have transitioned into retirement, kind of thinking about the non financial things that bring us joy during those golden years. Now, the fourth regret that we often hear is, I wish I would have stayed connected. The regret of staying connected really has to do with human interaction. We desire communion with people. We desire to be in a community. And a lot of times it takes intentional effort to do so. And this can be with your family, staying connected, with your friends, with your coworkers, with your neighbors. It can also mean staying connected with people that you lost a connection with, right? And that you want to rekindle that because we are very social beings and it helps both our mental health and our physical health when we stay connected. Because if you stay connected with people, you actually, all the data shows us, you stay more active. So it becomes part of kind of your fitness and your health is staying connected. And there's many ways that we can do this. You can do that by giving back in terms of volunteering. Another way that I've seen people stay connected in a really neat way is becoming a mentor. All right. You have a lot of life experiences, you have a lot of knowledge and wisdom that you can share. And so I've seen people get involved, whether it's with a middle school or a high school. Sometimes it's a community college or a technical school. Sometimes it's at their local church or some other type of community group that they have. And it's a way for them to give back. It's a way for them, you have all of these kind of assets, if you will. You have all this goodwill and you can share that. And it's a way to stay connected with people so you don't become an island. All right. And that's the fourth regret that we often see is people not staying connected. And the fifth regret, which is something that we oftentimes see from people at the end of retirement, is I wish I would have sought reconciliation with my loved ones. Reconciliation can be a hard thing. Whenever there's discord within families, and I tell you, we see it more often than we would want to, more than you would hope to see. Discord within families, discord between siblings and friends and neighbors. And we often see people regret this at the end of retirement, and they say, I wish I would have swallowed my pride. I wish I would have gone and asked for forgiveness. I wish I would have kind of been the leader in terms of that reconciliation because I just lost time. I lost time that I could have had with my brother and my sister. I lost time with that child of mine or grandchild of mine. And it really hurts them deeply in that regard that they didn't do more, right? And we understand why. It's a very, very tough task to be vulnerable, right? To kind of look at your own defaults, and to ask for forgiveness. It's also hard to forgive. And there's a wonderful quote by Lewis B. Smedes, and it goes something like this: Forgiveness is like setting a prisoner free, only to realize that the prisoner was you. So, in that regard, to not have this regret of reconciliation at the end of your retirement, I'd encourage you to seek that out, to go over to that person that you've had discord or some bad times with and ask for their forgiveness. Be vulnerable, right? Lead in that regard. And then hopefully you can mend those relationships and have that time. Don't miss out on that time because, everybody says that our greatest asset is our time, but I would argue that that is incomplete. It's not just time, it's time with people. It's time with the people that we love. And so I hope that this video is helpful to share some of the regrets that other people have at the end of their retirement so that you cannot have those same regrets. Speaking of regrets, whenever I hear of people that are already in retirement and they've turned on Social Security, they have another regret. It's more financial in nature. And they say, I wish I would have found ways to really increase my Social Security benefit. So I want to encourage you to click this video here where we go over 4 simple ways to increase your Social Security benefit.